In the lingo of the Gen Z, this is the OG scandal. Well, prior to the Watergate scandal of the Nixon administration in the 1970s, it was indeed the biggest controversy in American history.
Get out of here, you're in the office of the President of the United States. How can you talk about blackmail and bribery and keeping witnesses silent?
You must be aware of the events that have probably shaped today's politics, and the Teapot Dome scandal is definitely one of them. Warren Harding won a seat in the United States Senate in 1914. Encouraged by others, Harding started considering running for president in the last month of 1919. In June 1920, during the Republican National Convention, he started to come across as a potential compromise candidate. The election in November was handily won by Harding. At the time, Western oilmen competed for the chance to drill in the federally held oil reserves. In 1920, shortly after becoming president as a Republican, Warren G. Harding named his friend U.S. Senator Albert Fall to be his Secretary of the Interior. The U.S. Navy kept the two oil fields as a strategic reserve in case of another conflict as the 1920s got underway. The Navy was the greatest consumer of oil in the nation because warships switched from coal to oil. The tremendously lucrative oil deposits were found in two isolated areas, Elk Hills in California and Teapot Dome in Wyoming. The natural rock feature that resembled a teapot gave rise to the name Teapot Dome. Can you believe that this single scandal led to the fall of the government? The consequences of the scandal were very tragic. Let's go to the rest of the story. The transfer of the oil reserves from the Navy to the Department of the Interior was handled by Interior Secretary Albert Fall. He subsequently made arrangements for his allies to lease the locations for drilling, principally Harry Sinclair of the Mammoth Oil Company and Edward Downey of Pan American Petroleum. In a matter of weeks, Fall was able to persuade President Harding to authorize the transfer of the naval petroleum reserves from the Navy to the Department of the Interior. Then, the outcome was what came to be known as the Teapot Dome controversy. Once in charge of the Teapot Dome oil field, Secretary Fall struck confidential agreements with Harry Sinclair and Edward Downey. Both individuals, who were close friends with Fall, gave him bribes in violation of the word and spirit of the law to give them permission to drill in the three naval petroleum reserves. On the other hand, Leslie Miller, a Wyoming oilman who subsequently ran for governor under the Democratic Party, was suspicious when he spotted trucks bearing the emblem of the Sinclair Corporation transporting drilling equipment into the Teapot Dome Naval Petroleum Reserve. He requested an investigation from U.S. Senator John B. Kendrick. Kendrick sent the matter up to the specific Senate Investigation Committee after detecting malfeasance. Department of the Interior representatives testified in front of a Senate committee in October 1923 that Secretary Fall had given the oil licenses without getting permission from the president. Given that Harding frequently appeared to be pressured, it was not difficult to think that he was unaware of what Fall was doing. Harding appeared to be experiencing some extreme stress in the summer of 1923. In an effort to escape the numerous problems that were festering inside his government, he and his wife set out on a tour of the American West. Harding was traveling by boat from Alaska to California when he fell unwell. Harding passed away unexpectedly on August 2, 1923, most likely from a stroke. Later there was talk that his wife had poisoned him after stories of his extramarital encounters were public. On Capitol Hill, hearings about the Teapot Dome bribery scandal started in the fall of 1923. The investigations were conducted by Montana Senator Thomas Walsh, who wanted to know how and why the Navy had given management of its oil reserves to Interior Department official Albert Fall. The main contours of Fall's plan were made public by the beginning of 1924, with much of its responsibility landing on the late President Harding. Albert Fall eventually went on trial. He was found guilty and given a 1-year term in jail. Fall made history when he became the first ex-cabinet secretary to be sentenced to jail for misconduct in office. However, additional government officials who could have been involved in the bribery scandal avoided prosecution. Sinclair and Downey were both cleared of the primary accusation, which was providing Fall with bribes. However, Sinclair received a 9-month jail sentence on charges related to his employment of investigators to pursue members of the jury in the initial bribery trial, not for bribery but for contempt of Congress. In order to revoke the leases to Teapot Dome that Fall had granted to Sinclair as a result of bribery, the federal government filed a lawsuit in federal court in Wyoming. The government lost when Wyoming's U.S. District Judge T. Blake Kennedy rendered a judgment against it, but the leases were eventually terminated after the U.S. Supreme Court reversed Kennedy's ruling. This was the infamous Teapot Dome scandal. Express your opinion on this chapter of American history in the comments below. Thanks for watching.